Okay, picture this. A chess team, the Raging Rooks from Harlem, mostly beginners.
Right.
Their coach, Maurice Ashley, young guy, immigrant from Jamaica.
You wouldn't exactly peg them for contenders.
Not at all. 63 teams in the competition. But then one of their, let's say, less experienced players
Yeah.
pulls off this massive upset early on, beats a highly ranked player,
Wow.
and by the semifinals, they're sitting in third place overall.
That's incredible.
Ashley saw something, potential others missed. He had this idea, inspired by Tupac, actually, grow roses in concrete.
That phrase really sticks with you. And it
Yeah.
forces you to rethink, doesn't it, what
Yeah.
potential even looks like.
Totally.
We tend to see, the early bloomers, the ones who shine right away and think, okay, they've got
He
it.
had the naturals.
But this story, Ashley's whole philosophy, it suggests potential is maybe,
Yeah.
well, more hidden, more dynamic.
Exactly. And that's really what we're diving into today, this idea that we all have this untapped potential, and we want to figure out, how do you unlock it? This isn't just, positive thinking. We're looking at the actual science behind doing more than maybe we think we can.
And for everyone listening, trying to get solid insights quickly, that's the goal here, the key takeaways, without getting bogged down.
Right, because it really seems to come down to focus. We get so hung up on where someone starts their skills on day one.
That initial snapshot.
But the sources we looked at really push back on that. They show high achievers, they come from all over the place, different starting lines.
So if you only judge based on that first impression.
You miss the whole journey, the growth, the capacity to change.
Okay, so digging into that starting point idea, it feels so intuitive, right? See someone good right off the bat, think gifted.
It happens all the time, sports, music, whatever.
But if that's all we look at, are we just seeing, like, the tip of the iceberg?
I think so. Potential feels less like that starting gun and more like the whole marathon, the distance covered.
It's shifting from just talent to the process, development.
Yeah. Which then begs the question, if it's not just that initial flash, what should we be looking for?
And that's where it gets really interesting. Our sources point towards something, well, less flashy maybe, but maybe more important.
Absolutely. Let's park the raw talent idea for a second and talk character skills.
Sure.
There was this huge experiment, Tennessee, late 1980s, massive.
I know the one.
Yeah.
Over 11,000 kids.
Yeah. 79 schools. They randomly assign kids to different classrooms, K through 3, originally looking at class size effects.
Standard stuff.
But then, years later, this economist, Raj Chetty, he does amazing work on economic mobility. He dives back into that data, but he's looking at something else entirely, the teacher ratings from kindergarten.
And crucially, what those kindergarten teachers were rating.
Experienced teacher.
Right, exactly. And it wasn't just, can they count to 10?
No, it was things like, was the kid proactive, asking questions, curious?
Yeah, and pro-social, like how they got along with others.
And disciplined, determined. Could they focus, stick with something tough? Right, these like fundamental character things. And those ratings from way back in kindergarten, they tended to stick right through 8th grade. But here's the real kicker. Chetty's team looked at these same individuals as adults, their incomes.
Yeah.
Those behavioral skills, the ones rated back in 4th grade, were 2.4 times more predictive of their adult income than their math and reading test scores.
Wow. More than twice as predictive.
Let that sink in, not the test scores, these character skills.
Okay, so bring that back to the Raging Rooks. Suddenly, Maurice Ashley's choice makes perfect sense.
Right. Francis Idahan. Not the top player, technically.
But Ashley picked him for nationals.
Right.
His character.
Yeah.
His emotional regulation under pressure. Ashley saw that.
Exactly. And it wasn't just picking players. Remember when the Rooks were falling behind in that big match?
Yeah.
Ashley didn't give them some complex new chess strategy. He reminded them about discipline, something they'd worked on for 2 years.
Discipline. A character skill.
And it worked. And this wasn't a one-off. Another team, the Dark Knights. Their coach also focused on these broader skills. Multiple national titles.
So the big shift here, the takeaway, it's about how we measure potential.
Yeah.
It's not just the peak height someone reaches initially. It's the climb, the distance traveled.
We should be looking at those who achieve a lot, maybe starting with less, right?
That seems to be the argument. It's a different lens entirely.
Okay, so we're moving from just talent to these character skills. But how do we actually grow that potential? In ourselves, in others.
Well, one big theme is stepping outside the comfort zone.
Ah, yes, the dreaded comfort zone. We hear soft skills versus hard skills.
Right, though that term soft skills is a bit misleading, isn't it? Even the military found they had to drop it.
Because they're not soft. They're essential. Social skills, emotional skills, behavioral stuff, vital everywhere.
Think about language learning. It's a great example. Benny and Sarah Maria.
Right, the ones who struggled for years.
Yeah, took classes, did the exercises, but felt blocked. Like they just didn't have the language gene or they were too old.
They hit a wall using the same old methods and blame themselves, their own lack of ability.
But the key, the thing that unlocked it for them, and for many people in many skills, was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It takes guts, though, right? To ditch what feels familiar, even if it's not working.
Absolutely. Courage to try before you feel ready. Courage to mess up. A lot.
And this connects to that whole learning styles idea, too, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's super popular, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Learn best in your style.
But the research
It just doesn't support it. Decades of studies. And there's really no solid evidence that matching teaching to a preferred style actually improves learning.
It feels like it should work.
It does feel intuitive. But sticking only to what feels easy, your supposed strength, it actually limits you. You don't stretch into other ways of learning.
Right. And sometimes the stuff that feels harder, more uncomfortable, that's where the real learning happens because you have to engage more deeply.
That's the first kind of courage we're talking about. Willingly choosing discomfort.
And it applies beyond just learning skills. Think about procrastination.
The eternal struggle.
We think it's about managing time, but psychologists increasingly say it's about managing emotions, avoiding the unpleasant feeling of the task.
Steve Martin, great example. Early on, he didn't write his own jokes.
Because it was hard, uncomfortable.
Exactly. Easier to use existing material. But he realized, for real, lasting impact, he had to push through that, develop his own voice. He called it a slog.
A slog that made him Steve Martin. It honed his unique comedic genius.
Right. He embraced the discomfort of writing.
And Sarah Maria, she didn't just wait for discomfort, she chased it.
That's the next level, moving to Madrid. Full immersion.
Deliberately putting herself in awkward Spanish-speaking situations, and boom, fluent by the end of the summer.
She realized that mastering that initial awkwardness
Yeah.
was the key to learning any language.
That's the second courage. Using knowledge as you get it, even when it's messy. Giving her wedding toast in Cantonese. Seriously.
That takes nerve, but it accelerated her learning massively.
And it's wild, this seeking discomfort idea can even shift our openness to different views.
Yeah, that study is fascinating. Nudge partisans to seek out uncomfortable ideas.
And they're more willing to read articles from the other side.
Exactly. Reframe discomfort as a growth opportunity, and suddenly we're less resistant.
Okay, so embrace discomfort. Got it. What else is key to unlocking potential? Our sources talk about becoming a learning sponge.
Yeah, absorptive capacity. It's a great term.
Sounds absorbent.
Huh. Well, think about actual sea sponges. Super simple creatures, right?
Hmm.
But they've survived for ages by being amazing filters. They constantly pull in, process, and use what's in the water around them.
So absorptive capacity for humans is like that, actively pulling in information.
Exactly. Actively seeking it, sorting it, making sense of it, integrating it with what you already know. It's not passive. It's work.
Asking questions, digging deeper, connecting the dots.
Precisely. There's a really cool historical angle on this with the Protestant Reformation.
Martin Luther.
Yeah. His push for literacy so people could read the Bible themselves led to this massive jump in reading ability across Europe.
Okay.
And researchers argue that this wasn't just about religion. This widespread new skill, learning to read and learn quickly, might have actually fueled economic growth later on.
Really? How?
They found correlations. Areas closer to Wittenberg, the Reformation's hub, tended to have higher literacy and GDP centuries later. It created a population better equipped to learn other things rapidly.
Wow, like learning to learn.
Sort of. It highlights the power of proactively building that capacity, which contrasts sharply with reactive learners.
Like Ihab, the javelin thrower you mentioned.
Right. He improved when he had a coach, structure, support in Finland. Great. But when that went away,
Progress stall.
he was reacting. Compare that to Julius Yago,
The YouTube javelin guy.
the YouTube javelin guy. Taught himself to be a world champion watching videos online. That's proactive learning, taking ownership.
Incredible. It really shows the drive. You know, I tried being proactive once with feedback. Anonymous forms after talks.
How'd that go?
Disaster. Just brutal. And not helpful. Just mean, vague stuff.
Yeah, that highlights a key point. It's not just getting feedback, it's the kind of feedback and how you engage with it.
Right.
Look at Melody Hobson's experience with Bill Bradley. He gave her tough feedback. Direct, called her a ball hog in conversations.
Ouch.
Yeah, but because she was proactive, sought to understand it, not just get defensive.
Yeah.
It turned into a mentorship, opened huge doors for her.
And Tadao Ando, the architect, no formal training.
Right. He bootstrapped it, borrowed books, traced drawings, went and looked at buildings intensely.
That's serious proactive learning. And his buildings surviving the Kobe earthquake. That says something.
It really does. It's about that intentional, active pursuit of knowledge and useful critique.
Okay, active learning, seeking good feedback. But we're human. We mess up. We're not perfect. How does that fit in?
That's a huge piece of the puzzle. We tend to think greatness means flawless execution.
Yeah, 0 mistakes.
But the sources argue something different. That tolerating imperfection, accepting flaws, is actually part of mastery, part of continuing to grow.
How so? Isn't striving for perfection good?
Striving for excellence, yes. But perfectionism, that can be paralyzing.
The difference?
Right. Perfectionism creates fear of mistakes, which stops you trying new things. It can also make you focus too narrowly, optimizing one tiny thing instead of learning broadly.
It reminds me of my mom growing up. She'd say, do your best, I'll be proud. Pause. But if you don't get an A, I'll know you didn't really try.
Mixed messages there. Pressure for perfection.
Totally. But look at Ando again. Not a perfect student. He was even a boxer early on. Definitely comfortable getting hit.
Not seeking perfection there.
No. And in architecture, he moved from chasing flawless finishes to embracing what he called perfectly acceptable. He celebrated the intricate roughness of concrete. It became his signature.
He found beauty in the imperfection.
And you mentioned your diving experience. Thinking perfectionism was an asset.
Oh yeah, huge mistake. I thought being obsessed with tiny details, like the exact angle of my fingers entering the water, was the key.
But it wasn't.
No. It distracted me from the fundamentals, the takeoff, the rotation, the big things that actually improved the dive. Focusing on the tiny splash was counterproductive.
So it's high standards, not perfectionism. Drive for excellence, but allow for the learning process.
Exactly. And setting specific, difficult goals works much better than just do your best. And crucially, appreciating progress.
How do you do that?
Look back. Compare yourself now to your past self. How would the you from a year ago view what you can do today? I used to watch old diving videos. Cringeworthy, but motivating. You see the growth?
That's a great point. Okay, so accept imperfection as part of it. But which imperfections? How do you know what to fix versus what to let slide?
That's the tricky part, especially in subjective fields, right? Like art or writing or even management.
Yeah, how do you tell real problems from just like someone's opinion?
One powerful tool our sources mention is convergent feedback.
Convergent meaning?
Meaning, are you hearing the same critique from multiple independent sources, people who aren't talking to each other?
Okay. If different people, unprompted, point out the same thing.
It's much more likely an objective issue, not just one person's taste or bias.
Makes sense.
The choreographer Twyla Tharp actually has a system for this.
Oh, yeah.
She and her son decided if more than 2 separate people raised the same concern about a dance piece, it wasn't opinion anymore. It was a quality control issue. Something needed fixing.
That's a clear rule. Practical.
And she even suggests creating your own personal committee of judges.
Like a board of directors for your life.
Sort of. A small group of trusted people whose judgment you respect. They can give you honest feedback, help you gauge progress, see those recurring themes.
Okay, find your trusted critics. Got it. So feedback, imperfection. What else helps build potential? The idea of scaffolding came up.
Yes. Scaffolding. Just like on a building site, temporary support that helps you reach higher or build something new.
Temporary being the key word.
Absolutely. Our sources mention, fascinatingly, using Tetris, the game.
Tetris?
Yeah, as a kind of mental scaffolding to reduce trauma flashbacks. The visual processing involved seems to interfere with the memory consolidation.
Wow. Okay. So what makes scaffolding effective?
4 things, generally. Timeliness, you get the support when you need it. Specificity, it targets the actual problem. Point of need, it meets you where you are.
Yeah.
And temporariness, it's meant to be removed once you can stand on your own.
Right. It's not a crutch forever.
Exactly. Think of Evelyn Glennie, the percussionist.
Who is profoundly deaf, right? Incredible musician.
Incredible. Her teacher, Ron Forbes, didn't just say, oh, well, you can't hear. He built scaffolding. He taught her to feel the vibrations, different pitches in different parts of her body.
He created a new pathway for her.
A temporary adaptation that allowed her enormous musical potential to flourish.
And this whole process, this learning and striving, shouldn't feel like a horrible chore, right?
Ideally, no. That's the difference between obsessive compulsion and what the sources call harmonious passion.
Harmonious passion sounds nice.
It is. It's finding joy in the process itself, getting lost in it, that feeling of flow. It adds to your life, doesn't detract from it.
So how do you cultivate that? Especially when practice can feel like, well, practice, drudgery.
One technique is deliberate play.
Okay, different from deliberate practice, the 10,000 hours thing.
Different, yeah. Deliberate practice is often focused drills, repetition. Important, but can be draining. Deliberate play designs practice like a game. You create game-like scenarios that target specific skills, but in a more engaging experimental way. You track improvement, maybe compete against yourself. It's not just adding points or badges like gamification often does. It's intrinsically motivating.
Like Brandon Payne training Steph Curry.
Exactly. Payne creates these incredibly complex drills that mimic intense game pressure, forcing Curry to make split-second decisions while executing skills flawlessly. It keeps him engaged, constantly pushing his limits, even after years at the top. It fuels that harmonious passion.
And Evelyn Glennie did this too.
Yeah, there's a story of her working with a young violinist who'd lost his spark. Instead of drilling scales, she just had him explore sounds, play freely, focusing on enjoyment, not judgment. Deliberate play.
Bringing the joy back. So, okay, we're using scaffolding, finding passion through play. But growth isn't always uphill, is it?
Not at all. That's a really crucial point. We imagine progress as this nice, steady upward line.
Like climbing a ladder.
Right. But reality, it's messy. There are plateaus, long stretches where you feel stuck. There are setbacks, times you actually seem to get worse. And then maybe sudden leaps.
R.A. Dickey comes to mind. The baseball pitcher.
Perfect example. Years and years in the minor leagues. Then, breakout Cy Young season at age 35.
Because of the knuckleball, right? A totally new, difficult skill he developed late.
Exactly. And learning advanced skills often requires taking steps back. You have to unlearn old habits, rebuild from the basics. The learning curve gets steeper initially.
It feels like you're going backwards.
It does. And sometimes, weirdly, a setback for one person helps a whole group.
Like the injured star player thing.
Yeah, the studies on NBA teams. Star player gets injured, team initially struggles, but then other players step up.
They find new ways to play.
Exactly. Develop new skills, better teamwork. Then the star comes back, and the team is actually stronger, more balanced overall. The setback, forced growth.
It's like being stuck in quicksand, that analogy they use.
Thrashing around makes it worse. You need a different strategy to get out. Being stuck doesn't mean it's over.
So when you hit those plateaus or setbacks, what do?
Find a compass, not just a single map.
Yeah.
Don't rely on just one expert or one path. Find credible sources, mentors, who can signal when you're generally heading off course, but understand there are multiple routes. Seek diverse perspectives. Get advice from people who took different journeys.
Right. And when you feel completely stalled, that feeling of languishing.
Yeah, just blah. No progress.
Take a detour, a side project, a hobby, something totally different where you can get small wins.
Like your online Scrabble.
Exactly. Sounds trivial, but getting that little dopamine hit of winning, of seeing progress somewhere, can refuel your motivation for the main thing.
Those small wins matter. Like R.A. Dickey tracking his spin-free pitches. Tangible proof of progress, even when the results weren't there yet.
It keeps you going. Okay, so navigating the nonlinear path, but we don't do it alone, right? What about the people around us?
Huge factor. Which brings us to bootstrapping together.
Bootstrapping, like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Kind of, but doing it collectively. The story of the Golden 13 is amazing here.
The first black officers in the U.S. Navy, right? World War II.
Yes. Facing unbelievable racism, sabotage attempts, constant low expectations during their training in 1944.
Just immense pressure and prejudice.
And their lead instructor tried to make the final exam impossibly hard, basically to ensure they failed.
So what happened?
It backfired. The candidates realized what was happening, pooled their knowledge, and taught each other everything. Each person specialized in a topic and tutored the rest.
They created their own support system, their own scaffolding.
Exactly. It demonstrates the tutor effect. You learn incredibly well when you have to teach something to someone else.
Forces you to really understand it.
Right. And there's also the coach effect.
Helping others boosts your own confidence.
Precisely. Giving guidance makes you feel more competent yourself. You mentioned getting advice from your daughter before a TED Talk.
Yeah. Surprisingly helpful, just talking it through with her. Made me feel more solid.
And research backs this up. Psychologist Lauren S. Grace Winkler found giving advice can actually be more motivating than receiving it.
Interesting. So the Golden 13 were tutoring and coaching each other.
And they had this fierce collective belief, fueled partly by those low expectations, the underdog effect. They had to succeed.
And their resilience, bouncing back from everything thrown at them. That's a form of growth itself.
Absolutely. And underlying it all was this powerful sense of purpose. They weren't just trying to pass a test, they were fighting prejudice, opening doors for future generations.
So individual effort, collective support.
Yeah.
But the larger systems matter too, right? The environment.
Definitely. Good systems create opportunities, especially for those without built-in advantages. Finland's education system is often cited.
Yeah, their PISA scores always surprise people. They do so well compared to, say, the US or even neighboring Norway without some of the obvious resource advantages.
What are they doing right? Well, lots of things. Teacher autonomy is huge.
Letting teachers teach, basically.
Right. Plus, ongoing high-quality professional development, no teaching to the test, and this core belief that all kids can achieve highly.
They also do that shadowing and co-teaching thing, right? Teachers learning from each other.
Yeah, building collective expertise. And their whole approach to early childhood play-based learning, shorter lessons, lots of breaks, recess is sacred.
And reading. They really push reading, don't they?
From birth. Giving books to newborns, encouraging reading at home, letting kids choose books they actually want to read in school, fostering that love early.
It's building that absorptive capacity systemically.
Exactly. And think about the Chilean mining rescue. Another example of systems thinking.
How so? That seemed like pure heroism in engineering.
It was, but also amazing collective intelligence, enabled by the system they set up. They used techniques like brainwriting, so everyone's ideas got heard, not just the bosses. A flatter lattice structure, not rigid hierarchy.
So even seemingly crazy ideas got considered.
Yes, and some of those initially out there ideas were crucial to the final rescue plan. Traditional top-down structures often kill those novel ideas before they get explored.
You need leaders who amplify voices, not just command.
That's key for unlocking hidden potential within organizations.
Which leads right into how we evaluate potential. Are we using the right systems, the right metrics?
Often, no. Look at Jose Hernandez, aspiring astronaut. Rejected by NASA how many times?
Like a dozen times, despite constantly improving his resume, learning Russian, getting pilot training.
Yeah. NASA, at least initially, seemed stuck on specific prior achievements, maybe operational flight experience. They weren't necessarily seeing his incredible trajectory of growth, his drive.
We judged the snapshot, not the journey.
Exactly. And research shows prior work experience is actually a pretty weak predictor of future job performance anyway.
Really? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, but the data suggests other factors matter more. We also make mistakes like promoting the best salesperson to sales manager.
When managing is a totally different skill set.
Right. And even things like affirmative action, while well-intentioned, can sometimes create stigma or self-doubt that impacts performance based on how the system is perceived.
It's complex.
Very. And our sources really critique the obsession with GPA in college admissions.
It's nuance.
They propose looking at GPT grade point trajectory.
So not just the final number, but the improvement over time.
Exactly. Jose Hernandez again, first semester of college, rough, working multiple jobs, felt like an outsider, grades weren't great.
Understandable.
Then, consistent improvement, steep upward trajectory that shows resilience, work ethic, learning capacity, things a single GPA hides.
That makes so much sense, recognizing the climb.
And then you have innovators like Gil Winch in Israel with Call Yakel, totally rethinking hiring.
What do they do differently?
Focus on passions, comfort levels. They let candidates try tasks, even give do-overs during interviews. Trying to see the real person and their potential, especially for people with disabilities or other disadvantages who struggle with traditional high-pressure evaluations.
It's about designing systems to reveal potential, not just filter based on past credentials.
That's the goal, moving beyond simplistic metrics.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We started with the raging rooks, these unexpected chess heroes.
These roses in concrete.
Right, and this whole deep dive, it really hammers home. Potential isn't fixed. It's not something you're just born with or not.
It's dynamic. It can be unlocked, cultivated.
Through focusing on growth, not just starting points, valuing those character skills, discipline, resilience, proactivity.
Learning to embrace discomfort. Stepping outside what's easy.
Becoming an active learning sponge, seeking knowledge and feedback strategically.
Accepting imperfection as part of the process. Focusing on progress, not unattainable flawlessness. Building resilience.
And understanding that the systems around us, the support networks, the way we evaluate, it all plays a huge role.
And hopefully for everyone listening, there have been some useful insights, maybe some aha moments.
Yeah, maybe rethinking learning styles or seeing the power of non-cognitive skills or the value of seeking discomfort.
Or just recognizing that the messy, nonlinear path is the path.
Exactly. And maybe one final thought inspired by the book's epilogue. The significance of just having aspirations. Dreams. Research shows that teenagers who have bigger dreams, even if they seem unrealistic at the time, actually tend to achieve more later on.
Having that North Star matters.
It does. I even think about my own college application. I bombed the Harvard writing test they gave back then. Bombed it.
Oh, wow.
But my alumni interviewer, somehow he seemed to look past that. He wrote about my initiative, my character, things not on the transcript. He saw a trajectory, maybe.
He saw the potential rose.
Maybe. The point is, we all have more capacity than we probably realize. This dive gave us a framework for seeing it in ourselves and others.
So the question left for everyone is,
what rose in concrete are you capable of growing?
Thank you for joining us at Wisdom House, where we bring you timeless insights from the greatest books. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom House. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video.